We've got Jonathan Zaslow on the way to talk about the greatest first overall pick in NFL, nay, sports history. In the meantime, after another March filled with madness, I've got regions on my brain. If you ask anybody what the 4 points on a compass are, they'll say north, south, east, west, which is kind of weird because we read left to right as our society, as you may have heard. So you'd think it'd be west, north, east, south, right? You wouldn't say north, east, west, south, except when you say the acronym news with NEWS. What's it all mean? I don't know. But one thing's clear. Putting those directionals in order gets easier when you do it by NFL division over the past decade, at least if you're trying to rank the quality of said divisions, which happen to pair up very neatly by region. Long story short, the West times 2 is best. Or our best. The NFC West is the only division with more than one team to win a Lombardi over the last 10 years. Matter of fact, the Cardinals are the only team from that division who hasn't at least played in a Super Bowl during that stretch. And the AFC's version of the West, which for some reason includes a team based in Missouri or Kansas now, I'm not clear. Either way, it's the Chiefs I'm talking about. And the Chiefs have made 5 Super Bowl appearances over just the last 7 years, and that leaves out last year. Plus, the 3 Lombardis to go along with those ones won by the Rams and Seahawks. So like I say, the West is the number 1 region in all of football America. And that brings me to the other side of the equation, the 2 South divisions, the 2 worst in the NFL. Over the last 4 seasons, the NFC South has had one team, the 24 Bucks, win double-digit games. Win double-digit games, and it was just 10 games in the age of 17-game seasons. Even Tom Brady has had a losing record in his final season. The NFC South broke the GOAT. Sure, he was roughly the age of the Pittsburgh Steelers 2026 starting QB when that happened, but still, it is weird the South is the only one division besides the NFC West to have had more than one team reach a Super Bowl over the last decade, but even those come with baggage because of Tom Brady. He delivered that 21 Lombardi, which predictably is and always will be remembered as his and his alone. The Bucks and the fans, just a vessel to wield against his old rival Bill Belichick, with whom he teamed up 6 years prior to 28-3, the South's Atlanta Falcons. Brady's Patriots passed the baton on to Allen's Bills in the AFC East, and the Eagles' soap opera has yielded success in award season. And as for the 2 Norths, they haven't been to a lot of Super Bowls over the last decade, but they've been lousy with high-end QBs, future Hall of Famers, and Super Bowl contenders. So the East and the North regions are kind of like the 2 guys in the middle of a good 4-man bobsled. Not first, not last, not deeply important, but not bringing up the rear either. No, that's the South's job. Why? Because in SEC country, Sunday just means less. P.S. The Big Ten now means more on Saturdays too, but we can talk about that at a later date. Let's start the show. Yes, hi and hello, my fellow football Americans. Welcome to Football America, presented as ever by our pals over at DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. It's episode number 59. We have a lot to get to here. We're, at the time of this recording, exactly 2 weeks away from the kickoff of the draft on the banks of the Three Rivers, Pittsburgh, PA. Can't wait to get out there. Me and Lucy Rodine are going to be chiming in on the big live stream with Lebitard and everybody else. I don't know if this character is going to be there, but let's say hello to him right now. You know him from Zaz Show, as well as the aforementioned Lebitard Show. It's our pal, Jonathan Zaslow. What's the poop, fella? How you been?
Hello, Dave. How are you? Good to see you.
I'm well. You came back from vacation a little bit early. I want to hear about that, but first we have to tend to our usual business here. Gino Fuentes, what's the poop with you? It's episode 59. So which player in NFL, nay, sports history wore that number best?
Got a lot of linebackers here. We're in the end of the 50s. I got Jack Ham, London Fletcher, and Luke Kuechly, who I heard from you, wore his number 59 to honor Jack Ham.
I didn't realize that until recently. By the way, my sister Amy and I saw Jack Ham at a Pittsburgh Penguins game in the Igloo, the now decimated former home of the Pittsburgh Penguins, and we saw Jack Ham sitting there, and we said, "Ooh, we got to go get his autograph." And so we went over to him with a piece of paper and a pen, and we said, "Hey, Mr. Ham, can we get your autograph?" And he said, "Sure." And he went and he was like, He like went to try to write it, and then he looked up at us, and he tried again, and he looked up at us again, and he said, "Sorry, your pen doesn't work." And that was the end of our interaction with Hall of Fame linebacker Jack Ham. Also, I got to throw in Jake Gensel of the Tampa Bay Lightning, formerly of the Pittsburgh Penguins, and the guy who replaced him in number 59 in black and gold, Igor Chinikov, lighting up the NFL. I mean, the NFL, the NHL, and Roman Josi also wore it in the NHL. I think we got to give it to, I don't know, let's ask Zaz. Zaz, who's the greatest 59, Ham or Kuechly?
Ooh, I think Jack Ham. I think Jack Ham is revered more than Luke Kuechly is. I think it's Ham.
Short career for Kuechly, too.
Yeah.
Short career.
And, well, both Hall of Famers, and Ham was great, apparently ahead of his time in his ability to cover running backs and tight ends and otherwise, which was a rare skill for guys playing his position as an OLB. Now, Zaz, you had a less successful vacation.
Yeah.
You returned early. I've heard, it seems like something that happens in movies, but people, I don't think I can think of ever knowing anybody who's like, yeah, I'm just going to leave vacation a couple days early now.
We've done this
Never
several
heard of
times. I've pulled this move several times in the last couple years on family vacations where we come home early. I did it last week. My family, we went and we stayed in Vail. We had a great time. We stayed in a really nice house. A friend of mine gave me her house for the week, so we stayed there. We'd never been. We're a skiing family, the Zaslows, but we normally go to Park City in Utah. We wanted to go try Vail this time, but we know it's a gamble going at the end of March. You know, we're trying to get in like the very last week of skiing season. So we knew it was a gamble. It looked like there was going to be one day that I could ski. The slopes were open, but I'm not trying to ski on ice here, all right? I'm not an Olympian, all right? I ski the greens. I have a good time.
Not an Olympian.
Right.
Not an Olympian.
No danger involved here. I'm not trying to win a gold medal with skiing. So I needed to snow so we can get a little bit of the powder. And it was supposed to snow the day before our last day, so we would ski the final day. It didn't snow, so the skiing was not up to snuff for your boy. So I just said to my wife, I go, you want to just like, should we get on a plane today? You want to leave early? And she's like, yeah, we may as well because we've done everything. Like, otherwise we're just going to sit here in the house. So we came home a day early. No big deal, you know?
Holy hell. Good for you.
I did it one other time, though, Dave. One other time I've left.
Decisive action. I like it. Go ahead.
One other time. It was 2 years ago. No, actually, it was 1 year ago. Excuse me. It was after we were in, me and my whole family, along with my mother, too. My mother came with us also. We were in North Carolina. We had a cabin in North Carolina, and it was the beginning of the Stanley Cup Finals. And the Panthers, so this is last year, they're trying to go back-to-back. And the Panthers, they lost game one of the Stanley Cup Final. We watched it in the cabin. Panthers lost game one of the Stanley Cup Final in overtime. This was so upsetting to me that the next day, I told my family, we're loading up the car. It's time to go home, all right? My team needs me. I watched every game last year, Stanley Cup Final, from the Zaslow Mansion in the family room, and we won the Stanley Cup. I watch it here in this cabin. We're down 1-0. Time to go home, everybody. We packed up the car. We went home. And guess what happened, Dave? Guess what happened that series?
I know what happened, as a matter of fact. Can I say spoiler alert?
Go ahead.
The Panthers won the Stanley Cup.
Including game two, right when we got home. That's right. They won the Stanley Cup again.
Brad Marchand, overtime winner.
Yep. I had to do what I had to do for the team. Did it for the team.
Bruins legend. Yeah, listen.
Shut your mouth.
Coincidence? Yeah, probably. But I like where your head's at with this. I am one of these people who, listen, maybe in September, if early in the season, the Steelers are, they're playing the Jaguars down in Duval County. Oh, God, maybe I could go watch that with some other people. I can hang out and, tilt the elbow a little bit over the course of the 3.5 hours and drink in the action and some beer and kibitz along the way. When it gets to the playoffs, the gang's worked hard enough all season long that I think it requires me to give a little bit too. I'm just going to shutter the outside world and focus in. And this is the important time, and it needs my full attention as well as the players. So that's how I try to operate, right?
Yep.
So we park our cars in the same garage once again. By the way, great shows the last few weeks here. We've been on a real roll here. Amin El Hassan last week, Pablo Torre the week before that, Daniel Jeremiah the week before that. Point is, go and subscribe on YouTube to the Football America page and or wherever you find your podcast. We really appreciate it. And keep the comments going in the YouTube section. Zaz, as somebody who commits and commits hard, a lot of people love this weekend. They love lazing on the couch and watching high-end golfers in Augusta. If you're a skier, usually skiers aren't golfers and golfers aren't skiers. I don't think. Maybe they are, but either way, what would you rather have? You can, by deed, it's not like it's going to be delivered to your front door tomorrow by Amazon. It's like that you will have done what's required to earn this. Which would you rather have earned in your career? A Pro Football Hall of Fame gold jacket or a Masters green jacket?
It's a good question. I'm not a big golf guy. I will watch the Masters this weekend on Saturday and Sunday. My older son is a golfer, and he'll be way into it. So I'll watch the Masters for sure. But I think it's the gold jacket. You know, there have been guys. There are some guys who win the Masters. They have a green jacket. Like, whoa, that guy won a green jacket one time. But everybody who's wearing that gold jacket, it's like they had a Hall of Fame career, of course, you know? So I think I would go gold jacket.
Well, I hear you, but Chris Hanberger and Bob Greasy have gold jackets, so it's not that esteemed. Fuentes, boys, any thoughts here?
Gold looks so much cooler than the green. It really does.
Not a golf guy either.
You know I'm an aesthete. I'm Beau Brummel of sports. I care about what it looks like, but I'm not really looking at, like, do you want that? Neither one is a winning look. You want to walk around in a gold or a Kelly green jacket? No.
Yeah,
but with the little, with the thing, the patch on there, that's going to tell the story. I would go out. By the way, when people do the thing of like, oh, keep it behind glass and sheltered. No. At least once a week, I go out to dinner in whichever one I win. To remind everybody, like, or what are you showing off? Yeah, that's goddamn right. That's what I'm doing. I'm wearing my gold jacket out. You don't have one.
Yeah, I'm not a golf guy, number one, but like Kelly Green
I'd wear it to bed too. Yeah, I'd wear it to bed. Be the only thing I show up to bed in.
But Kelly Green jackets.
Hey, just remind the old lady, like, you know who you're laying next to.
Yeah, because she's gonna give a shit. Like the Kelly Green suits, I feel like I see in the wild before. Like I'll go out to a random business thing and I'll see somebody wearing a green suit. When you're wearing that gold, baby, you know it's gold. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I hear you. I think, practically, if you have to have earned the football jacket, you might have a limp. You're more likely to have a chronic physical problem by the time you're walking around in your gold jacket. Probably not the case with the green jacket. And really, what it affords you, if I understand, I think if you win the green jacket, I think you get to go play the Masters course. You can play Augusta whenever you want for the rest of your life.
Yeah, but you're doing two different things. You're doing like which achievement is higher compared to I just want to wear a colored jacket.
No, I'm not doing anything. I'm talking about all of it, friend.
When you
get
the
omelet
gold
or the cheese or the meats.
When you get the gold jacket,
all of it.
You battled with men. You took the bumps. You took the beatings. You won the green jacket. You put a couple of days of good golf together. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, but I'll see you in Augusta when I'm playing the best course in the world.
That's a hobby. Oh my! Hey, guess what? When you play golf, nobody can affect you but you. That's not a sport. It's a hobby they put on TV. Okay, I'm done with it.
All right. If you want to make that weird distinction, that's your business.
How am I wrong? How am I wrong? One's a sport where 11 guys are trying to kill me, okay? And then one is, I go with my little stick and I hit a ball down some grass and maybe the wind gets me, or I hit a bird, or some old lady eating a pimento cheese sandwich gets hit with my ball and now I got to take a penalty. Not the same thing.
You all right, man? You need someone to talk to?
What's wrong with him?
I don't know. He's charged up today.
Take it easy, man.
Dave, you want to know why? Jason, hit the imaging.
He's being rude, Dar. He's being rude.
No, because Dave, guess what? It's time for the return of the count. Let's go.
Yes, what a treat for you.
All this stupid hobby golf talk has got me thinking how we're only 22 weeks away from the start of the NFL season. How many weeks, Gino? I got you. Don't worry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wow, 22 is further away than I thought. 22 weeks until the start of the NFL season, Dave Dameshek.
22 more weeks. Well, 2 weeks till the draft. And it's funny, Zaz, The count.
Which is 14 days, by the way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's further away than I thought, too. 14 days! Well, 13, because this comes out on Friday.
The music and just the vibe, I would think, I would think the count is from somewhere in Eastern Europe.
Yes, we come from
But again,
Pennsylvania, Dave.
The count sounds like he's from Puerto Rico this time.
I don't know how you're making that distinction. It's very different. Okay. Bad Bunny was the last Super Bowl, Dave. By the way, the Super Bowl, Dave, the Super Bowl. 310 days till the next Super Bowl. 1, 2, 3. Oh, God, never mind.
Nice to see you again, the count. Welcome back.
Hello, Dave.
And don't
nice
be a
to
stranger.
see you as well.
Yeah. Hope all's well down there in Puerto Rico. All right, here we go. Zaz, this is something important I wanted to do around the draft. Soon we will be watching the draft lottery for the NBA, and the NHL will do its version of it. And I'm over the moon because the high draft pick of the Pittsburgh Pirates, Connor Griffin, just did what seems borderline impossible, or the Pirates did what seems that way, which is ink that guy to a long-term contract. All the jokes about, see you on the Yankees or Dodgers in a couple of years, do not apply to this stud. We'll see if they can wrap up Paul Skeens, but I'm very excited about what's going on with the Buccos, Zaz. Anyhow, sorry for that little detour. Here's what I wanted to ask you. Best first overall pick. Let's stick to NFL to start this conversation.
Okay.
off. The greatest first overall pick in pro football history. Go.
When I think of greatest first overall pick in the NFL, really a couple of names come to mind that stand above the others. I think the first one that comes to my mind is John Elway. You know, John Elway came into the draft, supposed to be generational player. Obviously made a stink about where he's going to be drafted, that whole deal. And he ended up fulfilling it. I mean, he went to 5.
Do you remember, or you're too young to probably remember when that was going on?
I'm too
right?
young. I'm too. I was alive, but I'm too young to remember, it was happening. But he ended up going.
I like where your head's at right out of the gate, which is, I talk about the curse of Sposta on a team when they're heavily favored in a big spot. That adds extra pressure to you. I mean, imagine being the individual who's like, this prodigy can't miss. And then, as it turns out, obviously, as we go through this, we'll probably identify some guys who couldn't miss and did miss. Mm-hmm. But John Elway, the heaps of pressure coming out of Stanford to be the guy. Like, this guy is the most gifted QB in the history of people to that point, and he delivered. Yes.
Yeah, he's the first guy I think of. Overall, I think of two players that they're, best number one overall picks. First one is John Elway, and the second one is Peyton Manning. Manning obviously came with a whole to-do as well. And he ended up, fulfilling it too, setting all the records, appears in, what are we talking about, 4 Super Bowls, wins 2 of them, and obviously, won one of them with the team that drafted him. So for me, best number one overall picks NFL, it's John Elway and Peyton Manning above everyone else.
How much are we putting in that Peyton Manning had to keep running into Tom Brady, where John Elway had good quarterbacks, but he didn't have the greatest quarterback of all time standing in his way.
I mean, it's whatever. Like Manning still went to 4 Super Bowls. That's a lot. Like, okay, if he didn't have to run into Tom Brady, he went to more. But all right, still appearing in 4 is a lot. That's like, I think, Dave, wouldn't you say before Peyton Manning was drafted, it's like, all right, should we take Peyton Manning number 1 overall? Okay, great. If someone would have said this quarterback is going to appear in 4 Super Bowls, you would have said, yeah, that's probably exactly what we're hoping for.
He delivered in a way that Elway did. Elway goes to 5, loses the first 3, as I've mentioned ad nauseum. The first 2, at least, those Broncos rosters had no business getting a sniff of a Super Bowl appearance, but John Elway dragged them there, and they got whipped. And that was kind of the story of Elway's career. Was like, man, he flops in the big spots. Like, man, you would too if Sammy Winder were your feature back and Steve Watson and Vance Johnson were your pass catchers. You probably wouldn't do well against Montana and those other high-end teams that you were facing when you get to the 86 Giants and all of that.
From a team perspective, though, I mean, it's got to be, Terry Bradshaw, for the team that drafted him, went on and won 4 Super Bowls, and this is where I step aside and let Dave go. Go ahead.
No, well, I mean, I can obviously advocate for Bradshaw, although it was tenuous when he was going to even be. They draft him in 70, the year after they draft Mean Joe Green, by the way. The Bradshaw is borderline flailing and can't win out against Joe Gilliam, the big arm guy, who was his competition. But by Super Bowl 9 in 74, he, people will say he was a passenger for that one. He has a decent game against the Vikings. And then in Super Bowl 10, that passenger throws a 64-yard dime to win the Super Bowl against the mighty Dallas Cowboys to prove his salt. And then, goes on to win 2 more. So there's before him, though. How about one O.J. Simpson? Orenthal James Simpson was a first-round pick. Bruce Smith, in the conversation at least for best defensive player of all time, was a first overall pick.
Yep.
Matthew Stafford in 09. Here's the thing about Peyton, Zaz. What kind of human being are you? It's sort of like the Solo versus Skywalker debate. Like it defines who you are on some level. I always say I would rather have been the San Diego Chargers running up to that draft than I would be the Indianapolis Colts, which is to say, I don't want to have to make the choice. Whoever they take, then we get the other one. And if it doesn't work out, that's not on me. That's, if Peyton ends up being better than Leaf, then they made the right choice. What did you want me to do other than take Ryan Leaf? But very often waiting you could make a case, Caleb Williams versus Jaden Daniels, to some degree, you're better off being Washington. What did you want us to do? They took Caleb, so now we had to take Daniels. How say you, Zaz?
I want to make the choice. I want the control.
You prefer it.
I want the power. It's on me. I'll control my own fate. I want to make the choice.
See, that's what you did on vacation. Matthew Stafford, Myles Garrett deserves a shout out. Baker Mayfield is a fun conversation as we go through that 2018 group. And Darnold now has a ring, and Allen and Lamar Jackson are certainly on their way to the Hall of Fame. And whether or not Baker was the right choice for the Browns and rolling through, we talked about Baker at the top there. Joe Burrow, and then Caleb Williams. I'll throw him out there. Does Caleb Williams 10 years from now factor into this conversation we're having?
I think he will.
Zaslow,
Yeah, I do. I think he will. I'm a big Caleb Williams guy. I think he's going to be fantastic his entire career. And certainly Chicago, when you consider the last time they won a Super Bowl, we're talking, 85? He might already be the best quarterback the Bears have ever had. So, yeah, I think in 10 years we'll be talking about him in this conversation.
Yeah.
Well, I don't acknowledge much of pre-Super Bowl era pro football, so he's definitely the best quarterback of the Super Bowl era that the Bears have ever had, which is pretty pathetic.
How do we look at a guy like Aikman? I'm right, 3 Super Bowls, but I don't think anyone says, he's the reason that the Cowboys won those Super Bowls.
Well, this leads us into the worst first overall pick, and Tony Mandarich isn't the worst, but I mentioned it a week or two ago, and I'll bring it up again now. It is one of my favorite things that Troy Aikman in 89, I should say, goes first overall. Then the Green Bay Packers are looking at the board that includes Barry Sanders, Deion Sanders, Derek Thomas, not mere Hall of Famers, but, generational greats, or however you want to couch it, whatever hyperbole you want to apply to those guys. They're not just garden variety Hall of Famers. They stand out even among those guys. They take Tony Mandarich second overall. I think that's the worst draft pick given what was behind him, but it's not a first overall. I think that Cam and Luck, 11 and 12, at least deserve a shout out. Luck, where do you come down on Andrew Luck? I've long said that if you change their respective skin colors, if you swap their skin colors, people would have hammered Andrew Luck way more than they did. Consider all the crap that Cam Newton got for the dancing and everything else, and maybe he deserves a lot of it post-career for making everything about himself. But, still maybe the greatest rookie season ever for a quarterback. That 2015 MVP throwing the ball to Philly Brown and company. And, so he didn't fall on that fumble. That was bad. But Andrew Luck, like about 20 minutes before the season kicked off was like, yeah, I don't think I'm up to it anymore. So good luck, everybody. Ironic for Andrew Luck to say that. How say you?
Yeah, the place that I would push back on that is I don't feel like we spoke about Calvin Johnson that way. Like when Calvin Johnson decided, now it wasn't 20 minutes before the season started, but when Calvin Johnson walked away while still essentially in the prime of his career, we all kind of shrugged where we understood, yeah, his body hurts. His body hurts and his team stinks. Now, Andrew Luck's team didn't stink, but I think his retirement also came at a time where we were having conversations just about how brutal football is and what the injuries can do to you. So maybe if Luck had walked away 15 years prior, we would have been rough on him, but he walked away like right in the middle of, head injuries, guys can't walk when they're older, and so I feel like that kind of benefited him when he walked away.
Interesting, but the other side of the coin and what I'm pushing at is Cam Newton didn't benefit from any of that kind of talk. I mean, Cam Newton's body broke down because he, the one of sports' enduring ironies is that the biggest dude wears out the fastest. Like, nobody can get him to the ground. You mentioned Earl Campbell. He ran out of gas pretty early. The anomaly is kind of Jerome Bettis for, making it into double digits in his career and still being relevant. But
Derrick Henry.
Shaq wore... Well, yeah, right. Derrick Henry's a great guy to push back with. He is an exception that proves the rule. But like Shaq and Lemieux and Eric Lindros and Mark Bavaro and Rob Gronkowski, those guys who are hard to get to the ground when it requires multiple human beings to launch themselves at you to get you to the ground. You're the common factor in all those collisions, and so you end up wearing out more quickly than the guys taking the shots at you are. Andrew Luck was like, yeah, we get it, man. Like, would Charlotte, North Carolina have gotten it if Cam Newton a week before the season or whatever was like, yeah, body ain't responding the way I'd like it to. Good luck, everybody.
Heck, down here, we were very rough on Ricky Williams. Like, Ricky Williams retired right before the season was starting. And then, of course, on top of it, after the retirement out of nowhere, about a week later, we realized, he's retiring because he wants to smoke weed. Like, he's about to be suspended for the season. And then, of course, the reaction to Ricky retiring was even worse. So, yeah, we were rough on Ricky before we even knew about the suspension part.
I feel like people, as memory serves at least, you had no horse in the race with the all-time rushing record, but I remember there was some like, what the hell you doing, Barry Sanders? Just stick around for one more year and break the rushing record. And then do what you do. Barry Sanders does that. It's funny that Barry Sanders still, if you bring his name up in the year of the Lord 2026, there's a decent percentage of people who say, that's the best running back of all time. Yeah. Not for me. He's better than Emmitt Smith, though, but I think it would have clarified things. And Barry Sanders, if he had that rushing record on the resume, I think everybody would just have to sign off on that's the best.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right.
As it is, it's Walter Payton, and that's when people want to apply career numbers, it's like, does anybody think Emmitt Smith was better than Walter Payton?
Right.
No, not if you watch the two of them. Quickly on the worst pick, I just want to throw some options at you here. Where do you come down on Bo Jackson? Tampa Bay, the weird thing with the USFL versus all those other alt leagues was that some percentage of those guys actually signed with the USFL and damaged their careers. Bo didn't do that. He went and played baseball for a little bit, but the Buccaneers burnt the first overall pick on Bo Jackson, who never even put on their uniform. So is Bo the worst draft pick of all time?
Very short career, and on top of that, while he never played for them, did Bo Jackson ever have a 1,000-yard rushing season?
I don't think he got to 1,000 with the Raiders.
I don't think he did. So yeah, for that right there, I would say Bo Jackson's closer to being a bad number one overall pick than he is to being a good overall number one pick. Yeah.
Tim Couch sucked.
Tim Couch is one of the first that come to mind for me. Yep, Tim Couch for sure.
While you guys are talking quarterbacks in the drafts, I was looking at the Peyton Manning's draft in 1998. Weak for quarterbacks. It was basically Manning, Ryan Leaf, the next quarterback after that, end of the second round, Dave's homeboy, Charlie Batch. The next best quarterback, a name that you would know in the sixth round, Matt Hasselbeck.
Oh, wow. How about that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Way out there at the end.
How about that? How about the collective wisdom going Chaz Batch? Oh, yeah, definitely over Matt Hasselbeck, who if he beats the Steelers, ironically or otherwise or coincidentally, in Super Bowl 40, is there a case for Matt Hasselbeck sort of getting some Hall of Fame buzz? I'm not sure about that. Alex Smith, how do you say, again, it's styles make the fights and what the competition and everything else. Alex Smith, you have to mention as the worst pick first overall because Aaron Rodgers was on the board and they went, don't you have? I mean, Aaron Rodgers is one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the history of people. What's Alex Smith? They took him on purpose. And by the way, the whole story, like he's from the region and everything else, that would have been a tidy and fun little story had they taken him.
Yeah, but 21 teams passed on Aaron Rodgers. It wasn't like, okay, you took him number 1, so we're taking Rodgers number 2. Most of the league passed on Aaron Rodgers that day. And I think, like, Alex Smith had a good career. He had a really good career. Went to at least one NFC championship game, maybe also an AFC championship game, if I'm remembering correctly. But Alex Smith had a good career. He just wasn't great right away with San Francisco like people thought he was going to be. I think he's closer to a good number 1 than a bad.
Okay. That's a fair argument. I think the winner is Jamarcus Russell.
Yeah, I was going to say, how long? Why are we avoiding this?
Not even a question, Mr.
Well, that's easy, Dave. Like, Jamarcus Russell being the worst, I think would be unanimous. But when I was a kid growing up, to me, I always thought of the worst number 1 overall pick. It was Steve Ettman. Like, going into that draft, Steve Ettman was so hyped up. He was coming off that 91 Washington national champion, which shared with the Miami Hurricanes. Steve Ettman was supposed to be so great, and he wasn't. He did absolutely nothing. He only played, I think, 6 years in the league, did nothing but be injured for most of those 6 years. Only played, can you imagine that? He was number 1 overall to Indianapolis, only played 3 years before they released him. So to me, growing up, like, worst number 1 overall was always Steve Ettman.
They and they also those Colts took Quentin Coryatt. They used a high pick on him. Steve Ettman gets the asterisk of injury when he specifically in that Rose Bowl that you mentioned. I'd never seen it happen to that point in my life. He literally drove the center across from him into the quarterback, into the end zone. I'd never seen anybody manhandle another 300-pound human being the way Steve Ettman did. He was a specimen who I think really didn't make it because of injury. Where do we come down on? And there are some other ones out here, too, with injury. Like Andre Bruce, talking about defensive guys. Tom Cousineau drafted by the Bills. Kenneth Sims, some other names to just throw out there. But where do you come down, Zaz, on the career of Jameis Winston?
I swear,
he counted as a terrible bust?
Dave, I swear he's on my list here. I was just about to throw Jameis Winston at you. I think he's an all-time bust. When you take a quarterback number, and I know he had 30 touchdown passes in a season. I get it, he did have some, I guess what you could call good years. But when you take a quarterback number 1 overall, and you look at his resume at this point, where he's a journeyman backup now for the majority of his career, that's a massive bust, Dave.
All right, I agree with you. I think that we kind of have tried. The census. It's funny to me. There are just some people who we want to give a pass to. It's funny, Calvin Johnson, you mentioned him. He's one of those guys who, before he even took a snap, was kissed into the Hall of Fame. Just about literally. That was, and Julio Jones kind of had that vibe too. It's like the guy would have to actively, like he would have to flame out because of injury or otherwise to not get into the Hall of Fame, given the buzz. Jameis Winston is the reverse of that. Like, he's become so likable that you don't want to denounce him. You don't want to point out the reality that he's just a massive bust.
Right. Everyone loves him. Everyone loves him who plays him. He's a great teammate, apparently. But it shouldn't hide that he's a major bust. Major bust.
So, okay, that completes the NFL. And we have Peyton Manning we're going to go with as our greatest number 1.
I think Elway number 1.
Elway number 1, okay. Yeah. And then our worst is Jamarcus. By the way, Vinny Testaverde, another one of those guys who was a bust. People forget about that for a long time. Mm-hmm. Coming out of the U, he was one of those, he can't miss. He might be the greatest quarterback of all time. And then he lost to Penn State, and then there were some doubts about him. And then he didn't get off to a great start, and it went on for years. And then he did turn it around.
He resurrected himself.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's do NBA here.
Before you
next.
move on,
And-
Dave, I have the answer to the Alex Smith question that Zaslow posed. Alex Smith, 3 conference championships.
3? Okay.
Okay, he lost to the Giants the year they beat the
Right.
Patriots. Yeah, he lost. It was
Right.
20-17. He was on the team for 2012, but he had been replaced by Colin Kaepernick. So he was on the team, but he did not play in that Super Bowl.
doesn't count.
And then
Okay.
in 2018,
Yeah, I don't
he
think
played
that counts.
against the Patriots, and he lost that one. And that was the big controversial year because the next year Patrick Mahomes gets put in. Everybody's like, how are you going to replace a guy who was just in the AFC Championship with this kid who's only a second, whatever. It worked out for the Chiefs. I'd
Yeah,
say.
so started in 2 conference championships. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Played in
Yeah,
3.
the ball hit Kyle. The guy's name was Kyle Williams, the punt returner, and the ball hit him twice, not once but twice, against the Giants. The Niners should have really gotten to that Super Bowl. And then talk about what if. There's no way you yank him, no matter how much you want to go to Colin Kaepernick. You can't yank him if Alex Smith wins the Super Bowl. You can't take out the reigning Super Bowl champ QB mid-season to see
and
what
you're
the
going
kids got.
back to back. Yeah, you're trying to, yeah, you're right.
NBA, I'll just throw them out for you, Zaz. A couple. You got Magic, Akeem. By the way, I'll stop right there, actually. Akeem is interesting because Michael Jordan goes third in that draft. Sam Bowie goes in between, famously or infamously, out of from the Wildcats.
Yep.
Goes to the Trailblazers. Is Akeem? Can you consider him the best first overall if he wasn't even the best player in his class?
Yeah, you can, because we're talking about best number 1 picks. We're not talking about best picks. So I don't think the fact that Jordan went 3, and it's not as if Olajuwon didn't win 2 championships for the team that drafted him. Like, their pick of Olajuwon over Jordan is totally fine. Like, it worked. It worked very, very big. Now, granted, it worked while Michael Jordan was suspended for gambling. Okay, so he wasn't in the league those 2 years. But nonetheless, like, the guy they selected won big with them. But for me, the greatest number 1 overall, it's Magic Johnson.
Yep.
He's number 1 for me. Magic's the first one, I think. What are we talking about? 79 draft, I think it was?
79 draft. He played 13 seasons. They went to the finals 9 times with him on the team, and they won 5 of them.
And including in his rookie year.
Exactly.
So, yeah, for me, Magic Johnson's greatest number 1 overall pick.
I think, first of all, back to the Jordan part of it. If you redrafted, if you said we now know what these guys are all going to turn into when you're drafting Houston Rockets first overall, they would take Michael Jordan. They wouldn't take Akeem Olajuwon, even as great as Akeem was and great member of the community and everything else. Akeem is beloved there in Houston, Texas. I think they would take Jordan. I'm not trying to make a case against Akeem. And by the way, one of my hottest takes that I sincerely believe, and I've taken this to a number of guys on the Houston Rockets and Chicago Bulls over the years, the best thing that ever happened to Michael Jordan was that retirement for those 2 years. Because if he would have had to play the Houston Rockets, his legacy would have been dented by the fact that he would have lost one of the NBA Finals. Akeem, that is the antidote to those Bulls teams of the 90s was a guy who could score in the middle against them. The 3-headed monster that they were throwing at people would not have been able to do anything to slow down Akeem Olajuwon. And by the way, the perimeter defenders would have at least given Michael Jordan some trouble. And I think the Houston Rockets would have vanquished Jordan and the Bulls.
It's funny. I think you're right, but it's funny what you're saying, that it's a good thing he didn't, that he did retire there, because he would have lost one of those finals to Olajuwon and the Rockets, and then he would be, I guess 6-1 instead of 6-0. But he did come back in '95, lose in the conference finals to Orlando. But it's like, that doesn't matter. No, that's okay. He didn't lose the next round. So it's good that he didn't get to the finals, because he would have lost there. Losing before the finals, that's okay.
That is exactly the mystique that boosts up Joe Montana. It's like, well, you get a 4-0, never threw an interception in a Super Bowl. Yeah, but he got hammered by the Giants and otherwise in the playoffs. Those don't count as strikes against him. He didn't even get to the Super Bowl.
Right.
Shouldn't that be worse?
Right.
But no, it does not.
And if we want to have the conversation, like, obviously, look, Jordan won 6 championships. LeBron so far has won 4 championships, but LeBron's been to 10 finals. So which is better? 6 conference championships, because that's what Jordan won, or 10 conference championships, because that's what LeBron won?
Well, to me, with all respect to Magic, I go LeBron as my 1A, and my number one is Lou Alcindor, a.k.a. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, on the strength of before he even goes to the Lakers, he's winning MVPs, or he's the guy for the Bucks, and then he comes to LA, and before Magic arrives, he's winning MVPs with the Lakers and everything else. He wins a title with the Bucks. Magic, there's no evidence that Magic can do it without Lou Alcindor / Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, save the first Jordan title, where if there hadn't been injuries, maybe Magic's Lakers get over on Jordan and then further dent Jordan's legacy, which is already damaged by having lost to the Rockets in the mid-'90s. I think I go Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the greatest first overall pick in basketball history.
But most of the damage came with another team than the team that drafted him. That's my only knock on that. With Magic,
That's a good point.
Okay.
The Lakers drafted him, and they got all of his career.
Good point.
Yeah. The Cleveland Cavaliers drafted LeBron James. He got them one title. He got titles for the Heat. He got titles for the Lakers.
You're right.
That one title, it was against what a lot of people consider like the greatest basketball team of all time.
Oh, it might have been the greatest comeback ever.
Yeah,
but
and because I think about Jordan all the time, but there was never a team that stepped on the court with Jordan in the finals that the Bulls were not favored against. The Bulls were always favored.
That, by the way,
Yeah.
Wow. Listen, everybody likes to sprinkle in some cynicism and all of that kind of stuff. The case for the Bulls and for Michael Jordan is the quality of competition in those finals. They never played a mediocre team. There was no team that sort of it just sort of landed that way. They got a crappy like the Sixers with Allen Iverson. They had one good player and a bunch of supporting guys around him and everything. Every team they went through, the worst team that they beat was the Lakers team I just mentioned to start their first of
the Suns team. The Suns team had Barkley.
Well, by the way, they didn't have.
No. You're going to bring up the Suns team?
No,
that
that's the
Suns
only
team
one.
is one of the great NBA single season teams I've ever seen. Are you crazy with Kevin
I'm just
Johnson?
saying when you compare
Are
them
you
to that
crazy?
Lakers team. You're a nuts man.
I mean, by the way, the Bulls, they didn't have home court advantage in all of those series. Like the Suns one, they did not have home court advantage. One of the Jazz, they did not have home court advantage. So I don't know if that meant that they were an underdog.
The Sonics won 60 games that year with Sean Kemp in the glove.
But the Bulls won 72 that year.
Mighty.
Yeah, and I think
I'm just telling you.
I think there was only one of all the times LeBron's been in the finals. I think he was the favorite against the Heat in the bubble. He was favored there, right? Mm-hmm. And then he might have been favored against the Mavericks in the first year here.
Yes.
But then he was an underdog in all the other
Yeah, the
ones.
Heat were not favored against Oklahoma City in 12.
Oklahoma City or the Spurs.
And maybe not against the Spurs.
No,
in
I don't think so.
13.
I think the Spurs were the favorite both times. So he's only been the favorite in two of his finals. Yeah.
By the way, got to shout out Shaq as a great first overall pick. I'm going LeBron here. And by
even
the way,
though Shaq never won with the team that selected him, never won.
that's what I'm talking about.
Okay. Yeah.
You guys are putting some
wait
fancy
a
pants
second.
rules on this.
But listen, LeBron is sort of, I was talking about the 89 NFL draft with 4 busts and a bust in Tony Mandarich. How about LeBron's draft class? Goes LeBron, then third is Melo, then fourth is Dwayne Wade.
No, fourth is
fifth
Bosh.
is Chris Bosh.
4 was Bosh, Wade 5.
Fourth is Bosh and Wade 5. Number 2, Darko.
That's tough.
And he was going to go to a team that was like they could have extended their run there because I think that's when the Pistons were on the downturn from the Chauncey
Well, no,
Billups
they
years.
won the championship Darko's rookie year.
Yeah, and they had if they would have picked Carmelo or Bosh or whoever.
I don't know. It's tough to say that. Like maybe that would have ruined the chemistry. Maybe they wouldn't have traded for Rasheed Wallace that year because they had Carmelo. It's tough to know.
Yeah. All those hypotheticals.
It's fun. And by the way, LeBron is the NBA's Elway, which is to say he dragged some bum teams way further than they deserve to go. And, vanquishing the Dubs the way he did. LeBron, I don't get also. I know the thing about Memphis is now another chapter for reasons for people not to like him and everything. I continue to be mystified by why there is so much hatred directed at LeBron James in a world of filled with so many creeps that LeBron James catches so much crap for being a little bit phony and trying to play it down the middle a little bit too hard. Like, all right, there are worse crimes to commit there. From 19 to 22, you go Zion, Ant Edwards, Cade Cunningham, Paolo Banchero, and Victor Wembanyama. Does Wemby or Cooper Flagg, are they in this conversation in a decade, Zaz?
Wembanyama will absolutely be in this conversation. And while that's a pretty good run right there of number one overall picks, I think by far the weakest there is Zion. And not that he's not a good player, but you're the number one overall pick, and they haven't even won a playoff series. Like that's horrible. Forget about winning a championship. They're terrible every single year. In that sense, Zion's been a bust.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't think there's much question, and I think he might get that, so we'll shift over to that conversation. But I'll start biggest bust in – there's some obvious names, but quickly, who the hell's Zaz? You're an NBA wonk. Who the hell is Zachary Rizachet?
Really, really bad draft. Very, very bad draft. Yeah. It's unfortunate for the Hawks that the year they win, they weren't the worst team in the league. They jumped. They won the lottery. And in a year that they win the lottery, it's just a unanimous dud of a draft. It's not like they missed. It's not like the guy who went number 2, which was Alex Sarr, I believe, to Washington. And he's a nice player, Sarr. But it's not like, oh, they should have picked this guy instead of this guy. It was a dud of a year for the draft.
Okay. By the way, I should just shout this out because of generational differences. From 82 to like 91-ish, all centers are at least bigs. It goes Ralph Sampson, Akeem Ewing, Brad Doherty, who was a high-end center, David Robinson, Danny Manning, Never Nervous Purvis Ellison, Derek Coleman. Larry Johnson is the smallest of all these guys, Shaq Fu, and then Chris Webber. Quite a run, and I don't think you would see that repeated in this day and age. In fact, guys that size aren't really prominent and aren't huge factors like they were back in the day. I'm fascinated by that. So we go with our busts. Greg Oden, Anthony Bennett, Zion, Kwame, Joe Barry Carroll, if you want to get in the Wayback Machine. Or my pick, Zaz, I don't want to steal any of your thunder here, Ben Simmons.
Yeah, Ben Simmons is on my list. I do think number one biggest bust overall is Anthony Bennett. I mean, just no NBA career to speak of.
And where did that pick even come from?
It came at like he was not expected to be number one or number two. It kind of came as a surprise. There's no NBA career to speak of. Guys like Kwame Brown. A couple years, Kwame Brown was a serviceable player. Ben Simmons certainly, while he was a bust, was a very serviceable player for a couple of years. You got nothing of that resembled an NBA player from Anthony Bennett.
Mike Fuentes is a creep because he just said in my ear, he whispered it so no one else could hear it. He said, "We need to rap here." Is that right, Mike Fuentes?
Yeah, because sometimes when you do television, you tell your talent stuff that no one else is supposed to know. So that way, maybe you.
All right, well, I like to share. I like to share. That's who I am.
It's a transparent show.
I guess.
That's all. That's what we're doing here. Let me just say this very quickly. Because I'm a completionist. Best first overall draft pick in the NHL. We can go round and round about McJesus and Celebrini and Matthew Schaefer and whoever else. Alex Ovechkin, Sidney Crosby. Mario Lemieux is the correct answer to that question. And Alexander Daig is the answer to the worst first overall draft pick in the NHL. I'll come back to you, Zaz. You'll get a bite of this apple here. The best first overall baseball pick, all due respect to Steven Strasburg, poor guy, Bryce Harper, Paul Skeens. He's going to be a factor in this conversation in 10 years probably. Darryl Strawberry. It's A-Rod is the answer. The worst one is the sad story of Brian Taylor, 1991, the New York Yankees first overall pick. Can't miss kid. Going to be to the Yankees what Dwight Gooden was to the Metropolitans. except that he gets into a fight on behalf of his brother outside a trailer, falls on his shoulder, wrecks it, it's destroyed, and he never really makes it in the bigs. It's a very sad story. So he's your saddest first overall pick. All right, Zaz, I wanted to cut to the chase here. The greatest first overall pick of all time.
It's a great, wow. All sports, all encompassing.
That's what I said. A-Rod, you could go with him. You could go with LeBron or Kareem or Magic if you want.
Yeah. I think
they're available.
I think I'm going Magic. We're talking 5 championships for the team that drafted him.
It's also just the nature of the sport. Like, that one player does so much for your team when it's 5-on-5 compared to, that guy's going to have the most
in
impact.
a 13-year career. They only didn't go to the finals 4 times.
No, it's crazy. It's incredibly good. Started Game 7 as a rookie at center because Kareem was hurt, and they won. He had 41 points.
So wait, all 3 of you are saying Magic Johnson
because of the nature of basketball.
Overall pick of all time?
Yeah, because of the nature of basketball and like how much one guy. I mean, for God's sakes, whatever team had LeBron for 10 years was going to the NBA Finals in the East. Like, that's just one guy. He literally chose, I want to take this team to the Eastern Conference Finals, and he went there, and that was it. And that's just the nature of basketball. So yeah, I'm going to have to go with Magic.
Interesting. I know a guy who won 5 titles as well. His name, he couldn't even speak English. He couldn't even speak English back in 1984. But he knew enough to sign the contract that he was reluctant to sign when Eddie Johnston announced his name for all the world to hear. The Pittsburgh Penguins select first overall Mario Lemieux. And Mario Lemieux showed up, and just with his presence and his dominance saved the Pittsburgh Penguins from being disbanded or moving to some other part of North America. His greatness, all the pressure. He's the next Gretzky. Gretzky's in the league for 5 years, and this guy's supposed to be his rival. He shows up and exceeds him in terms of talent. To anyone who looked at the two side by side, that is obvious. He wins 2 Stanley Cups. All with a terrible back. He has cancer. It's sort of sad, but at the same time, he's not Gale Sayers either. He's still dominating the sport on a level that no one, including Gretzky, ever has. The points records be damned. He is the most dominant player. Then he retires. Then he buys the team to keep them from moving again. He buys the team. They go on to win 3 more Stanley Cups under his watch. There is no figure in the history of people who has meant more to one franchise than Mario Lemieux has to the Pittsburgh Penguins. End of story.
I mean, I get it. He bought the team, Dave, but it's the 90s or early 2000s, and it's an NHL team. Get a group of buddies together. You can purchase the team.
We can go down to Dollar General right now.
What the hell is happening?
Yeah.
You understand he only wore 1 uniform too, right?
Yeah.
This seems to be a point you're bringing up about like, well, he didn't do it for that. There's only one conversation because he only played for 1 team.
I understand.
All right, you know what? I'm cutting this conversation off. Okay. I thought it was going to be more satisfying than it's been. I guess. Thank you for your time, Zaslow. Guess.
You're welcome. You don't guess.
I'm looking forward to talking with you as we do most Fridays on the Dan Lebitard Show, Zaz Show 2.0. Find it on YouTube. Find it wherever you find your podcasts. You'll be better for it. Zaz, you're the bee's knees fella, and love getting to yap with you every Friday, like I say. And
thanks, Dave.
I love you carving out some time for us today as well. Thanks so much, pal.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Dave.
All right, there he goes. Jonathan Zaslow, everybody. And here we go to, I would go on for another hour, but Mike Fuentes doesn't want me to. So you can take it up with him in the YouTube comment section or otherwise. In the meantime, we're getting closer and closer to that draft in Pittsburgh, PA. Can't wait to get out there. Can't wait to meet you if you're going to be on the banks of the Three Rivers at that time, too. Until then, or at least until next week, when we'll really be tuning up for the NFL draft. Thanks so much, my fellow football Americans. It's been a thin slice of heaven.